How is the Second Civil War in the United States going to begin? I played around with the idea and wrote this little story, fictional story, very fictional story, about what it might take for the Second Civil War to actually begin. Are you willing to kill Americans? That's what the President of the United States asked General Ezra Price at 3 a.m. What had happened was that President Newsom issued an executive order reversing all bans on abortion. He wasn't playing politics anymore. Of course, many states didn't comply, and he knew that they wouldn't. He would need to make a powerful example, showing that democracy would hold strong, and that any opposition to it would be met with force. So, he would go after the largest opponent of his order, the state of Texas. So, on March 14th, 2025, the U.S. Army arrived in Shreveport, Louisiana, a 1-hour drive from Longview, Texas. Governor Abbott of Texas organized the largest body of National Guardsmen in the history of the United States, with many soldiers flooding in from other states to help out. General Price had no expectations of a peaceful resolution. He knew that thousands of Americans were about to die, so he didn't hesitate in taking the first shots. The Texans didn't hesitate in firing back. Blood had been spilled, but this was only the beginning. The Battle of Longview, Texas was bloody and lasted far longer than anyone had expected. The Texans held their ground. They had seized weapons from Fort Hood, and the 69th Defense Artillery Brigade had defected and joined the Texas National Guard. It was on the 8th day of battle that dissension began to spread through the U.S. Army. The president and the general had assured the world there would be no conflict, that this was merely a show of force. Of course, they had lied, and doubts began to spread, and many soldiers refused to fight. General Price, seeing the lack of morale among his men, called for a ceasefire. He then had a meeting with Governor Abbott and told him that if Texas didn't surrender, that the military would be forced to drop a Moab on the city, the deadliest non-nuclear weapon the military had at its disposal. Abbott refused, and later that night, he sent 3 former Navy SEALs into the U.S. Army encampment and had General Price assassinated. But unfortunately, the next morning, the bomb still dropped. Over 4,000 Texas National Guardsmen lost their lives in that explosion. It was a victory for President Newsom and the U.S. Army. But Texas wasn't out of the fight, and many other states would soon join them against this rising imperialist threat. The country was outraged, but they were also confused, and nobody could have known then that this was the beginning of the end. The day the U.S. Army fired upon Texas was the day that Louisiana and Tennessee joined the fight. General Price had utilized Shreveport, Louisiana as the Army's forward operating base. But within an hour of shots fired in Texas, the Louisiana National Guard launched an assault on the remaining Army forces. They seized 14 Abrams tanks, 20 howitzers, and 12 Apache attack choppers. Governor Sharon Hewitt of Louisiana considered the Army's march into their city as unconstitutional, and she said they would give back the assets to the Army once they had removed all troops from Louisiana and from Texas. After the general dropped a Moab on Texas, the Louisiana state legislature voted to declare war against the United States Army, citing Article 1 and Section 10 of the Constitution. They boldly declared that a splinter group had seized control of the Army and that they were no longer affiliated with the United States. Seeing President Newsom and the U.S. Army breaking their constitutional oaths, Tennessee and Mississippi both joined Louisiana in their declaration of war against the Army. Tennessee sent over 4,000 troops to help Mississippi seize control of Camp Shelby Army Base, as well as multiple Army munitions factories. Seeing the rapid dismantling of the U.S. Army, President Newsom pushed the democratically led Congress to declare Texas, Louisiana, and Tennessee as in a state of rebellion. Congressional representatives from those states were arrested and barred from voting. That was the day the United Republic was formed, starting with Texas, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Louisiana. It was a temporary coalition designed to remove President Newsom from office and to restore full rights to the states. But we would all soon learn that there was nothing temporary about it. and other states would soon join the coalition. While Longview, Texas was engulfed in flames, riots broke out in every major city. A majority of Americans just wanted to be left alone and have peace. But now the United States was killing its own people? Martial law was declared in Los Angeles, San Diego, New York City, Detroit, Chicago, and 20 other cities. But military support was at an all-time low, and emergency powers could hardly be enforced. But President Newsom and his corroborators knew this day would come. They had been planning something for years. When the president was elected, he replaced the Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force with a man named Charles Dobson, a PhD from Princeton who had a background in military history. Together, Dobson and Newsom would create the largest army of drones the world had ever seen. The Air Force then enlisted thousands of people sympathetic to the cause. 40,000 combat drones were deployed to Los Angeles. The governor of the state gave the rioters 24 hours to go to their homes. Of course, no one did. And that's when the drones opened fire, killing over 3,000 people within minutes. Seeing the success of these modern marvels, the drones were deployed to every major democratic city in the USA to keep the peace. But not satisfied with simply quelling the riots, the president ordered the arrest of anyone who had participated in open rebellion against the USA or anyone who had posted online supporting the United Republic. Each drone was equipped with cameras and facial recognition, and that information mixed with data provided by Facebook, they were able to quickly locate anyone who had participated in these riots and arrest them from their homes. Newsom promised the world that after the rebellion was over, the drone program would be retired. Of course, that never happened, and Dobson's drones would rain terror on millions of Americans. More states joined the United Republic as drones infiltrated every major city. Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Ohio all declared their allegiance to freedom. At that same time, President Newsom announced that Congress had passed the Universal Healthcare Law, that all citizens of the United States would receive free and unlimited health care forever. Millions of people celebrated as Newsom proudly declared that all businesses would now receive a 70% tax and executive salaries would be cut substantially. They would then hire 100,000 IRS agents to go to each business and ensure that the law was obeyed. As you might expect, businesses and entrepreneurs were outraged, and thousands of companies relocated to the United Republic. After that, there wasn't enough money to fund the healthcare services, and over 45,000 doctors and healthcare professionals also left the United States. Seeing this mass exodus, the president issued a new executive order, which people called the anti-escape order. Any people who were caught planning to leave to the United Republic would be arrested, and those who had already left would never be allowed entrance into the USA again. Disgusted with this new order, police forces in Washington, California, and New York turned in their badges and followed the doctors and businesses to the UR. Without enough officers to enforce the law, the White House announced the creation of a new federal police force called the UDS, or United Democratic Servants. But finding combat-ready patriots to fulfill the needed units was near impossible. So the UDS would then become the highest paid law enforcement in the history of the country. They were vicious and cruel, and people soon learned to keep their mouths shut and heads down low. Fear began to spread even among the most progressive supporters of President Newsom, and people watched in terror as this new police force rose to power. While thousands of people fled the USA, the United Republic debated on what to do next. They would build their forces and strengthen their borders, but wouldn't commit to any large-scale assault. There was no one to attack. They believed that Newsom had put the right people in positions of power, so it wasn't really the USA that was the threat, but those who had usurped authority over the country. They decided the only way to bring the states back together was to remove those people from power through covert ops and insurgent tactics. And after some careful planning, the first attack would be in California. When the White House declared that no commerce could be made with the rebelling states, it caused severe damage to the agricultural industry. thousands of farmers in the San Joaquin Valley of California refused to obey the anti-commerce order. So, UDS forces stormed their farms and seized their trucks. And what was worse, if they stopped providing food to California, they would be arrested. That's when a group of former Army Rangers out of Tennessee snuck across the California border and provided explosives and firearms to these farmers. They armed over 100 landowners and made a plan to get back at the president by striking at his very own hometown, the city of San Francisco. The farmers destroyed the San Joaquin pipeline, completely severing the city's water supply. At the same time, those Tennessee Rangers detonated explosives on the city's 8 bridges. No one would enter or leave the city of San Francisco. For 10 days, no food or water was delivered to the city. The farmer rebels blockaded any help that might come to the people, and they said they would leave once their lands were restored to them. But all they got in response was 1,000 drones that rained hell on them from above. So the first insurgency against California and the USA had ended in defeat. But this wouldn't be the last battle. In fact, this was the beginning of the end. As more bloodshed spread across the nation, each state had to pick a side, but there never was a full-scale war. No North versus South or West versus East. This wasn't a second civil war. What we got instead was an endless wave of insurgencies. People assassinating government leaders, armed men and women destroying supply lines and holding state buildings hostage. Eventually, the United States just fell to pieces. California, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, and New York all formed a new government, the SDUA, or Social Democratic Union of America. The other states joined the United Republic. Though new alliances have been made, the country is in chaos and confusion, and almost everyone just wishes things could go back to the way that they were. Of course, they never will. If you forgot, my name is Mark Wahlbeck. I wrote this story, completely fictional. Sorry if this offends you. I thought it was fun. The destruction of America being fun. I don't know, maybe I'm a sociopath. But if you like this and want more of it, just click subscribe. I'm gonna make a bunch of stories and post them just like this. See you next time.